Welcome to episode 243 of The Numbers Game. I'm Jace. I'm here with Nick and Marty. And Marty, I want to know how the hell a cheese shop is more profitable than a builder. What is going on?
Well, Nick sent me on a course. After the last episode, we were talking about, I don't know when the last episode was, but we were talking about what we would do for money in enhanced sports. I was thinking, should we be considering a little bit more about gross profit margins when we're looking to buy a business or entering a business? I know a lot of the times, we sort of come out of alignment of what we do through uni and fall into a job. And sometimes those jobs are capped at a certain level of income. Like I've always thought, nurses should get paid a hell of a lot more. Teachers that are looking after our kids' future should be paid a hell of a lot more than what they do. But they're not, and they're capped to a certain limit. It's not to say that it's bad what they earn, but at the end of the day, the expenses of living are the same for everyone. So should we be thinking about what type of businesses we're going into, because that's like a future investment in our income and also our future asset and career as well? Initial thoughts, Jace?
100%. It absolutely, it's mind-blowing when we start to work with small business owners who are early stages of their journey and you ask the question about how much they're expecting to earn from being a small business owner. Maybe they've left a salary where they were earning a certain amount and they're partway into the journey. And it's not until you kind of go, cool, well, let's just go to the end game. How much money does this business need to make you for you to have the lifestyle that you want, or for you to be able to cover the living expenses you've already got? And sometimes actually it's quite upsetting to be in that position or to kind of see them realize what they've got themselves into, that their business model doesn't quite stack up. Because if they turn around and say, look, yeah, hey, hopefully the next couple of years I'm making 300,000 or 3 million. And when you reverse that out and go, cool, well, for that to happen, your gross profit margin needs to be this, and you need to keep your fixed cost down to this number for that to happen. And often the gross profit margin doesn't get to where it needs to be to even get anywhere near the net profit thereafter. And it's this whole moment of going, geez, what have I done? How can I change this? And it leaves them going, maybe I need to change my whole business model and do something different altogether.
Can we quickly explain the difference between gross profit and net profit?
Yes. Certainly. Gross profit is the percentage of revenue a company retains after deducting the direct costs of purchasing the goods or services. So it indicates how efficiently a company can deliver a product and service. So this is before all other expenses.
Would a service have a gross profit?
Yep, potentially. So if you've got people that are involved in earning, so let's say, yeah, your people might be a cost of goods sold. So, for example, accounting professional service income, less the cost of the accountants to do that equals gross profit. And then below that, you might have your general admin team, for example, that aren't directly involved in completing the tax return or selling a particular service. Think of it, let's say plumbing. Plumbing, you might have the plumbing job that was done, less the plumber's wages and the materials equals gross profit. Then you've got all the other costs below the gross profit line, and then you get your net profit.
Yeah, and look, I bring it up because I was at Millgrove Cheese. I'll give them a shout out in the Yarra Valley. Beautiful aged Gouda, White Lotus, Camemberts, and salamis, boutique salamis, buffalo Italian cheese, all artisan produced by themselves. And I just thought the product was just so delicious. Like we drive half an hour to go to the shop, and Nikki and Peter, a shout out to those guys, fantastic people, and they love what they do. Like they have a real passion, and when they talk about the cheese, they can tell you how long it's been aged for, where it's been aged. It's just incredible. They stamp print every one. They win awards. And I said to him, like, you're just so passionate about what you do. What's the profit margin you actually make on the cheese, like to produce it and then what you sell it for? And they say, look, we make about 30% off the, after the cost of producing it. And that's not taking into account their time to produce it as well. And I just thought to myself, wow, once you start putting wages, rent, and it's not a massive operation. And I said, geez, is it a bit tight? And they go, well, yeah, it's tight, but we love what we do and we do okay. We make enough to get by, but we can't scale it because we can't take it to the next level because the cost would just be exponential, and the return's not guaranteed because the bigger you get, the costs will increase as well on other expenses apart from the cost of goods as well. So it was really, really interesting that there was not much that there were not many variables that could go wrong for them really in producing what they love. And I thought to myself, now I want them to keep making that cheese. There's no doubt about it. And this is fantastic when people have pursuits that they're passionate about. But if you're buying a business, like I said to him, did you think about that prior to starting the business? Like in regards to what no, we just love what we did. We just wanted to share it with the world. We didn't, they started to get more business acumen as they went, and they were in the trenches and they, adjusted as they needed to, which a lot of business owners do. But I thought, it's a really good example of the importance of understanding what your gross profit margins are in a business as your first point of call. What does it take? What's the cost to produce what you do, either a service or a product? And the higher the margin, the more opportunity for net profit as well. And the expenses, apart from the cost of goods, are more adjustable. Like you can make plays on that. So the higher the gross profit margin, the more opportunity you have to scale, the more opportunity you have to manage expenses outside of the cost of goods. But I think it's an important thing, and not many people, I think, would be considering that when they buy a business or even running a business. So I think it's an important factor. And I had some numbers. And this is just to give you some reflection points. And Jace, you said it well. You've got to match in your personal ambitions and your financial realities of what you want to accomplish outside of what you do as an important factor. But for instance, Michael Hill Jewelers, their gross profit margin, they're a high luxury end jeweler, and their profit margins are reported around 60%, 60.6 gross margin. So you've got a lot more to play with there than in boutique cheese, which is around about 30% gross profit margin. Now, interestingly enough, with Michael Hill, they still only had a $15 million profit before tax and other things. So they ended up virtually being, I think, pretty much even for the last financial year. So it shows you the high level of other expenses. So net profit's still important, but they had more ability and flexibility to be able to play with that in a more challenging year than someone with a lower gross profit margin.
You'd imagine their rents at big shopping centres are through the roof, and if they're not getting foot traffic through the door, you can make the best gross profit margin on selling the jewelry, but if all of your other fixed costs or operating costs are through the roof, there's not much left over at the end of the year. So, these levers that we talk to business owners about pulling, and business owners of all sizes, just obviously the bigger it is or the more gross profit you've got up top, the more options you've got to try and retain some of that. But it's not always the case. You can have fixed costs that are through the roof. Like, for example, the Michael Hill jeweler at Chadstone might absolutely have the biggest rent going, and they don't make a lot of money in that location. So yeah, good one to look at and good way to think about it.
Construction industry, gross profit margins are 15%, really slim, let alone what they're making net, right? So if something happens in the economy and there's a shift, as it has happened during COVID, and expenses going up dramatically, there's just no flexibility to be able to survive that. Because in business and life, things happen. Like, we know there are times when you ride the wave and everything's going really well and you've got to enjoy those moments. And there are times of real challenge that sometimes you're not in control of. So again, having a higher gross profit margin gives you flexibility to be able to maneuver and gives you more time in the game if something does go amiss.
And this is a prime example why, if you look at liquidations and voluntary administration statistics, why the construction industry is one of the highest kind of makes up the most numbers in that area. If you've got extremely slim margins, even at gross profit level, before you even get to the bottom line, and something goes wrong on a job site where you've got relatively fixed contract to deliver a service or deliver a construction project, even at a small business level, we were dealing with a business, I won't even say the industry, but in construction, they took on a $3 million contract, which was quite a solid contract for them. And as the project went on, this business month on month was in the red, negative, 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 and spoke to the business owner and said, what happened? Oh, well, the costs on this project blew out. The way we did the contract didn't leave a lot left for us. So I said, well, what was your expected profit on this? And it was a $3 million contract. And at the end of 6-month project was meant to be 150,000 profit. And I said to this business owner, I'm like, mate, it sounds like you've taken on a lot of stress. You've got a lot of employees and contractors. Like, was it worth it? Like, I mean, even if it had gone right, like, would you do it again if it meant 150,000 at the end of 6 months? And the answer was no. Like this guy it nearly destroyed his marriage, it destroyed his livelihood, and he ended up having to reinvest back in this company to close out the project so that he didn't have to become another liquidation statistic. But this is how easily it can go wrong if you don't know the numbers well enough to be able to project and forecast and map out, the upside of something going right, but also other side of that, if it goes wrong, what's your exposure?
Yeah, you got to have your margin of safety, and you need a decent upside for that level of commitment, guaranteed. And that I don't think a lot of people think about that up front. I think a lot of people some do, but a lot of people go into it, and it becomes a pain point on the back end of a project like that. And even those basic examples, like for every 100K Michael Hill Jewelers make, they keep 60 in the gross profit margin. The boutique cheese company keeps 30 out of the 100, and the construction company keeps 15 out of the 100. And I would think that's probably the most risky.
Mm-hmm.
The higher type builds, speed, timing is everything, weather. Like there's a lot of things that can go amiss and a lot of costs. So
interest rate rises. You think about when some of the bigger construction companies went under, the cost to fund projects was cheap, the cheapest it had been. They went all in, and then very quickly, what did we have? Bajillion interest rate rises over a couple of years, and project costs were cooked.
And that's what these tech companies do so well. Like the Microsoft has 69% gross profit margin. You got Google at 58% because they've got softwares people keep buying again and again and again. So it's just lower labor costs in that, and they're keeping a lot more of their money, which obviously is then affecting the bottom line as well, where they're making substantial profits. So all I'm presenting this is to say, have a think about this up front. Like, rather just falling into something, if you have a capability around business, you can always have experts support you around that. But think about the industries you're entering into and making sure that you have significant upside in that decision. And I know there'll be people thinking about their careers as well. Like, I think people do very honorable careers and then don't get paid as much for them, and they get frustrated. And I think you need to make those considerations. And people will have natural skill sets in certain areas, but I think it's wrong to just discount your potential upside out there and take a wider view of what that future could look like for you and where you're going to place your focus and energy as well. Nick?
Yeah, I think the thing that I pick up here is that, the first thing I pick up is lower margin, high scale, more risk, but you can probably make more money. And we've mentioned the builders, but I don't think this should deter people from doing what they love, I guess, if you're lucky enough to be in that position, or what they're good at or they want to do. They just need to think about how they're going to do it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't look at a cheese business and say, the margins aren't big enough, so I'm out. It's, well, how do I change that narrative? So if I'm a builder, what am I going to go into? And this is on a nowhere near the scale that the builders we're referring to that have gone to liquidation. But I've got a client in the past who just did decks, and he was a qualified builder, and he just did decking because there was no risk, high margin. There was just him and one other person, and in and out in a day, hypothetically, or in and out in 2 days. So I think look at your craft and look at what you can do, and then decide, okay, well, what am I going to attack? So with the cheese business, maybe there's certain cheeses they make that are harder to make and that are less margin. Are they putting it online and trying to ship it? How are they selling it? I'm not sure, Jace. You'd have far more examples than I would. But
the salamis and stuff have a higher margin. So they've introduced those other products within the business that's creating more of a margin. So it's like, it's, why are you laughing,
Oh, I'm
Jace?
just laughing because the more we mention cheese and
I'm
salami,
getting
I
hungry.
just get hungry. It's like,
I've got some aged Gouda in the fridge I'm ready to have a crack at.
I know. And look, I love these conversations because it actually forces you to think beyond, as you said, Nick, most people who start a cheese business and make cheese, they do it because there's a passion and a love. It might have come from family, legacy. Someone in the family taught them the trade, or it's something they've gotten into through working a job somewhere. But, if you get to a point where then this is the stuff you start to explore, because you can be the best cheesemaker, but if you can't run a business, you're in a bit of strife. Just like you could be the best plumber or the best accountant, but if you're going to own and operate a business, then this stuff is the fundamentals. But, you then start to go, well, if there was a cheese business out there, I can't remember the names of the people, but shout out to them and thank you for the cheese hamper that you sent to the numbers game, level 2, 65 Dover Street, Cremorne. We go, okay, if you can't improve the gross profit margins, what else can you do? So I diversify product range, add some different cheeses that may be a lower cost to make so you can, level out and balance it out. The ones that are on the shelf aging for years, okay, cool. How can we brand them with a premium brand separate to our daily brand, like day-to-day brand that people come and buy? You think of Penfolds Grange, what they've done with Penfolds Grange. So, I'd be looking at that cheese business going, cool, okay, once we've diversified our branding, do we have a wholesale business where we can do the volume stuff through the supermarket down the road? Or that's not our brand. We're high-end, low volume boutique. Then do we go direct to customer, the hamper that's going to be delivered to the numbers game office? They do beautiful hampers, not that many of them. You've got to get in early every month and order in advance at a high margin for a particular hamper full of Yarra Valley's best local produce that they go and source themselves. Fuck, all of a sudden, like this cheese business is sounding like a good high margin.
Well, even ideas that come out of and you're exactly right in the way you're thinking about it. Like we always go, oh, let's get a traveller. Like when we go home, because we have the cheeses wrapped and the damn thing tastes so good in the taste testing. So we get a little sandwich traveller each, and it's like I'm going charge $5-6 for that. You know what I mean? Because that people want to have a taste sensation when they're in there, and they do have tasting. But these are the sort of things, it's like Nick was talking about with the builder. I was talking to a builder and he was saying that he purely moved his business into renovations because he doesn't have to worry about council approvals. He can get in, get out. He can do $100,000 jobs, and his profitability on that is so much higher than actually going through the process of doing a brand new build. Smart.
Yeah, and you should be. I've got another really good example on that. We have another client who is a builder, but only does make goods. So make goods is going into you've leased the commercial office and you've spent a lot of money on the fit out, and then you have to leave the office, and in most cases you have to get it back to its original condition. So that means if you've got walls up, partitions, desks, it's all got to be stripped back. So I've got another client that only does make good. So all he's doing is going and ripping things out, in and out in a couple of days, no stress. You're not dealing with people. You just got to get it back to a bare shell. Charges great money for it, and it's high margin. And we even in our business we do this. And I'm happy to share this. We've recently been through a process in our financial planning business where a big part of our financial planning business is insurance and risk insurance, so income protection, life, TPD. We've spoken about this stuff. But we've determined that there's a certain amount of cover that we actually can't deliver that to the client and be profitable. So we're basically giving that advice at a loss for our business. So if someone comes to us and just wants $1 million in life insurance policy, we will lose money delivering that service based on what the market expects to pay, which is zero. It's a commission-based product. So for us, we either need to charge to do that advice, or we do it and lose money. So we've determined that there's actually a better option out there for the client to get that kind of insurance, if it's solely that's what it is, and we're not the best option. And that's more than okay. But there's no point us trying to put that business on the books at a loss, because that just has so many impacts. And I know, Jace, you always look at this stuff in your business. So Yeah, it doesn't mean you can't do what you're doing is what I'm getting to. It's just understand what makes you money and what doesn't, and how can you tweak things to make sure that you're focusing in the right areas.
That's a great example. Even on mortgages, Nick, you look at the time frame it's very relevant and still very profitable, but the time frame of execution on that could be 4 months from when you first see a client do a good job and get paid. Where you look at some of the business cash flow type of products where you could assess the solution in 48 hours, have the client with a result within 3 days, and be paid on it the following day. Like, just the return on time and effort is incredible. Now, you're going to have variances in a business that delivers so many solutions, which it's going to be a winner across the board overall. But it's just even interesting on that sort of stuff where, like, you think about that renovator going, I can be in and out, do a great job, clients delighted, utilising all my skills, maximising my return. And so people are making, street smarter decisions as they go within their businesses as well. And that's certainly what Nikki and Peter were doing as well in real time. And I think a lot of people were doing that. But I think, I think you can do both. And I think that's, you want to give thought. Like, some people buy a business purely because they want to run a business and they do want to make money. And I think it's those people, if they're coming in and they're looking at it as a strategic investment for the future, then that's a real key component to make sure that the gross margins are strong in, looking to take that on board. And be careful too, because like, you look at cafes, they sometimes run at a 60% gross profit margin, but their expenses are so high, they're notorious for having 5 to 9% profit, once all expenses are drawn out. So that's not a great situation as well. So you need to be industry specific and dig deep into the numbers, so you're making a quality decision if you're going to spend all this time growing a business as well. So what are some of the things we can do? Like, again, premium branding and storytelling. I think, we talked about Liquid Death, which was a water branded well, and they charge probably about 30% more than everyone else on water. So it's amazing with jewelers how that perception of quality they can present in their marketing, and, based on what they get the product for to what they sell it for, it's highly emotive. There's not one partner that sits across from that ring that they're trying to buy without there being a deep emotional connection to paying, top dollar for that opportunity. So again, it might be, like you said, Nick, for the cheese shop, it might be like that aged cheese that's 3 years, that's got to have a 50% premium on it because it's so significantly good, so again, like wine does as well, and various different things. I think they're the sort of things, maybe direct to consumer, like you said as well. Maybe people don't have the shop fronts, even though I think the shop fronts are good fun. But, they start to think about having an online presence where they're collecting more gross margin. And the easiest thing is also to look at the current efficiencies of how something's being developed to see whether there's any optimization of expenses within that. That's probably the easiest to first attack. But again, you want to maintain the quality of what you're delivering in order to make sure you can still charge that price to the market, or even increase the price to the market for quality. And it's like the insurance. Like, I'll ask a question to you there, Nick. On the $1 million cover, what would you have to charge to make that feasible? And is it that ridiculous that it's just no point?
Up $2,000.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, we're not the best. We're not the best option for the client.
Yeah.
They're best off to go. I can't imagine really any advisors that would be profitable writing just that policy.
Yeah.
So, again, it doesn't make sense for the client.
Yeah. Makes sense. But they're the sort of things. I just wanted to throw it open to our audience to, to consider what you could do to optimize in your business, but also if you're making a strategic play, make sure that the margins are there, gross profit margin, net profit margin, and then we work on optimizing from that point. But really important, because I see so many people fall into businesses just based on their passion, and that's great. We don't want to deter that, but we just want to make sure that the numbers stack up to back that passion so they can keep, building brighter futures for themselves. And no doubt you would see a lot of financials, Jace, that come through with people buying businesses. It's great to get another set of eyes over something that you're looking to do and get some relevant advice, and future advisory are fantastic around that. So
yeah, 100%. And the mindset there is you don't know what you don't know. You can do, online research and looking at everything else, but sometimes it just helps to unpack in real time and talk to someone about, what the numbers actually mean and then what the opportunities are too. So yeah, just don't feel like you can't reach out to myself or Marty or Nick. We're definitely here to have these conversations. I mean, this is why we're here today having this conversation. It's what drives us and what makes us happy.
Fantastic. Well, know your burn, know your return. Game over.
This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The conversations are of a general nature and do not qualify as financial or tax advice. We recommend before you make any financial decisions, you consult a licensed professional. Individuals on the podcast may hold positions in the companies discussed.